Good morning and welcome to the May 7th, 2015 City Council study session. The first item on our agenda will be items from citizens present. And we have one citizen that's asked to speak, Mr. Shoemaker. Would you please come forward? We allow 3 minutes for just to grab a seat right there in front of one of the microphones, if you would, please. We normally allow 3 minutes, and if you don't mind, for the record, would you please state your name and address?
Mark Shoemaker, 846 North Barclay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm addressing the council about the destruction and safety concerns that the City of Mesa has caused to my property and asking that the city be responsible for its actions as they would expect from any of their citizens and restore my property to its previous conditions. On September 10th, 2013, the main water line running north and south along Harris broke, flooding my property with mud and water. Approximately 1 million gallons of water escaped before the City of Mesa workers could shut off the main valve. In the process of repairing the broken line, the city destroyed 42 feet of my cinder brick wall, uprooted several mature oleanders, and destroyed 150 square feet of my driveway. The city was well aware of the outdated, decrepit, unreliable this water line was, as it has broken numerous times over the past few years. This water line was scheduled to be replaced and moved to the center of the street in July of 2013, but was postponed until summer of 2014. The city put up a temporary makeshift fence and promised to fully repair all damages that the city had caused. I've contacted numerous city employees over the past year and a half about these outstanding issues. On July 16, 2014, I received a code compliance letter from the city stating that the fence must be repaired as it is not in code compliance. After receiving this letter, I once again contacted the city. At that point, public relations persons Renee Powell contacted me and stated that the city would indeed repair the damaged wall and trim the oleanders. But instead of repairing the damage and trimming the oleanders as she promised, Renee Powell personally oversaw the destruction and vandalism of every oleander left on the east side of my property. When confronted as to her actions, she stated, "The city writes the laws to protect the city, not the citizens of the city. Therefore, the city can do whatever it wants, and the citizen has no recourse." Mr. Mayor, the City of Mesa has caused two very serious safety issues. The first one, the city has created a safety hazard by installing a temporary, non-code compliance rickety fence that now allows children as young as 3 years of age to climb and injure themselves. The wall that was destroyed was providing security, privacy, and a safety barrier. The second, the city has created an impalement safety hazard by mutilating healthy mature plants and leaving dangerous protruding stumps. These stumps were providing these trees were providing an essential barrier for noise, vandalism, dog droppings, as well as providing shade for energy conservation that the city is actively promoting. Mr. Mayor, what will you say to the families of these needlessly injured children, knowing that the city not only caused but ignored the safety hazard for over the past year and a half? When a child is learning to ride their bike and falls and impales themselves on the sharp remains of the plants that the city so viciously cut down. Or when a child falls and cracks her head open attempting to climb the temporary non-code compliance rickety fence that the city installed. Or even worse, when a child drowns in the previously secured, protected pool. What will you be telling those families? I'm simply asking the city to restore my property to its previous condition. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Shoemaker. Unfortunately, because this is not an agenda item, we can't address your concerns during the course of this meeting. But I'm sure we'll have further discussion on this. Thank you for being here. All right, the next item on our agenda is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the fiscal year 15-16 proposed budget. Candace, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. As we discussed previously, we've gone through for about the last month and had some department presentations over the various issues within their 15-16 budget, and we told you we'd come back and kind of wrap it up at the end of those discussions with kind of an overview of where we are with the 15-16 budget. The proposed budget for fiscal year 15-16, as we discussed previously, is the first year of a 2-year process that the city is looking at to try to align the ongoing expenditures with our anticipated ongoing revenues. For the 15-16 budget, we included some increased various identification of revenues that we could do within our areas, such as inspections and so forth. We've also done some ongoing reductions in our department budgets, and those were presented to you both in the council report and in presentations. And we did some one-time reductions in our contributions to the public safety retirement pensions that will help us in this upcoming year to face those challenges. The result is about the $7.5 million is remaining to be covered by available reserves. Those reserves are available due to savings we've achieved over the last couple of years. We're able to cover those for the 15-16 fiscal year. One change that we have made based on council direction previously during the discussions, the council asked us to take a look at extending our pool hours for this summer due to the schools opening a little bit later, and that was kind of creating that gap. Staff did go back and look at that and computed that if we were to keep 4 pools open during that time period, it would cost about $70,000. We took a look at possibly funding that, how we could do that. We have identified some one-time savings that were scheduled in 15-16 for the Buckhorn Bath project. While the bulk of that was park bond project, we did have some general fund monies that were allocated to that project that are freed up with the cancellation of that. Those are one-time savings, so we have added $70,000 to the parks budget for the extension of the aquatics program for the 2015 swim season. And then next year, it was added as a one-time adjustment to their budget, and then we'll have it up for review next year again as we look at the 16-17 budget. Just an overview of some of the items as we've talked about, things that are not included in the 15-16 budget but have been identified previously. We've discussed these a couple times now. We have a few park projects that were approved in the last park bond election for construction. We do have those construction dollars, but unfortunately we are still looking for making sure that we can verify we have ongoing funds to actually operate and maintain those parks. So at this point, as we're looking through our ongoing budget reductions over the forecast period, decisions we make today do affect the forecast period. So we're currently projecting about $1.1 million of operations and maintenance of various parks that we do not currently have identified in our forecast. Now, obviously, as we go through the capital improvement program, it is an ongoing and continuous review. So if funding does become available, projects could be pulled forward or accelerated at that time. Some of the other items that have been identified by the department or by the city are our various life cycle and infrastructure programs. We're constantly looking at those to make sure if we have any large dollars that are going to be coming up in the next few years that we need to start accommodating by either setting money aside or just understanding that they're coming up and start planning for them. Some of those items are the vehicle replacement program. We currently fund that program on the general governmental side at $2.5 million per year. The Fleet Services Department has identified an additional $4.5 million in vehicles that have met the retirement criteria that are not currently as part of the plan for 15-16. We also have various departments like the Fire and Medical Department. They're averaging about $1 million a year they've identified in just various equipment and needs, things like radios, breathing apparatus, those types of things. Police equipment right now have identified about $3 million in unfunded needs. The bulk of that is about $1.7 million in replacement radios, and we'll continue to work with them on our schedule of how we make sure that we keep up with those. Then also some consoles and so forth over in their 911 dispatch area. They're a little bit pricey, so we try to plan for those ahead of time. Information technology, we do fund quite a few different life cycle programs for them. We do have a software upgrade program, as well as the infrastructure and the maintenance and operations. The maintenance and operations, our software licenses, if you will, are funded fully for next year, always to make sure we're in compliance, so we always fund those first. Infrastructure comes second. We do have some infrastructure that's funded in 15-16. Where we're lacking right now on the information side is the actual upgrades to software or new software that a department may be looking at to try to leverage within their department. So at this time, they have about $1.6 million that have been identified that departments may need for upgrades that's not currently included.
Mr. Finter.
Sorry to break your
That's okay.
move through here. I know you're doing a presentation. I would, without jumping on a soapbox too high, I would love to see, I expect to see a plan come back about consolidating IT in this city. We've had presentations on it. It seems to lag. I think it's at the point of time to slaughter a sacred cow. And so when I see some of these, I get my blood pressure up and I've seen some very innovative departments have to come in and do some pretty dramatic cuts, and it's concerning to me. And when I look around this information technology, we have our main IT group, we have a police IT group, we have a fire IT group. We've had presentations. It's time to, so next year I would hope that by next year that we come in and come up with a plan to consolidate and see what kind of savings that we can get along those lines. So that would be my observations on that point.
Thank you.
Last area that we want to kind of review a little bit is our facility maintenance area. As we have buildings that do age each year, we do have a program currently where we're funding $3 million per year for those types of annual maintenance replacement. That includes roofs, air conditioning units, those types of things. Over the last year, they did experience about $460,000 in unplanned repairs over the year, so it kind of gives you some comparison of where we're funding it so far. We're kind of moving into a more of a reactive mode versus proactive. Although I will say for facility maintenance, they are very innovative and have put together quite a few different teams of how to address and be as proactive as possible.
Yes, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Just a question on that. Were those unanticipated needs, were those related to the severe weather bouts that we had throughout this past year with the very heavy rains that were atypical? And were those the reasons that we had the additional costs for the roof replacement and things like that?
Actually, there were a few of those with a couple of like the gym facility where we had the problem with the flooring. Some of the other ones were just kind of standard items that have come up within the buildings. Communication building, we had some issues with. We had to do some generator leasing and so forth over there. So it's really kind of, there's not one area that popped up. It's really just we have a lot of facilities within the city of Mesa, and as we're looking through, they are doing a constant review of those facilities and we try to plan ahead, knowing life cycles and so forth. It wasn't really I didn't see it on their list. I didn't see a whole lot that was related to weather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple other items that have come up over the budget process that are currently not included also in the 15-16 proposed budget is an increase to human services funding. Last year we did look at the human services funding. This is the transfer from the general fund to the nonprofit organizations here in the city of Mesa. Last year in the 14-15 fiscal year we increased the ongoing contribution to those organizations by $100,000, bringing it to $720,000 annually. That has continued into 15-16. No additional funds have been added to that line item. The other one that was we talked about this cycle was the Buzz transit line was brought up by the transit department, where they've done some review on an option to reroute the Buzz so that it would include the Riverview area. That was estimated to be $105,000 per year. That is not currently included in next year's budget.
And Candace, let me just step in here.
Right.
So we haven't funded it yet. We're evaluating with Metro to determine maybe the best way to get there. We'd like to do is extend the route so it goes through the commercial area of Riverview, and we're seeing if we can do it on, like we did out at Power Road, we did it on a seasonal basis when we had winter visitors and we were trying to get people to the specific shopping area. So this is more of a pending issue. So as soon as if we can get approval to do a seasonal route that extends this route out to and around the Riverview Commercial Center, Shopping Center, then we'll probably come back to council to do that. We're able to do this because of the route at Alma School?
On Alma School, that's currently being diverted, the north-south route that's being diverted over to the light rail station right now in Sycamore. But when light rail opens up, we don't need to do that anymore. So we could free up some dollars to potentially fund some.
Right, so.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I know there was some discussion for also a seasonal route running from the Oakland Stadium to downtown. Is that something that we're going to still continue to look at?
We can look at it. This route gets us, is so close to getting us to run off to Riverview. We thought during spring training it would, and it comes all the way back to downtown. I can't remember, is Jody here? Does it come down center? I can't remember how close it gets to Holcomb Stadium. Maybe you can't remember that route in my head.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor Kavanaugh, the Buzz does go south on Center or north on Center and makes a westbound turn at Brown. So it does get right next to about as close as we can get into Hohokam without going right in there and mixing with the traffic getting into the stadium.
Right, because I know there was some interest on the part of Oakland in having the Buzz actually get to the stadium and looking at some possible partnership with a DMA or get some additional funding like that for the passengers coming back to downtown Mesa. Again, particularly to help hook up with light rail.
Correct.
Some other items of note that I need to let you know as we go into the 15-16 budget. We have been focusing on the general governmental side and the enterprise fund side, but the total city budget does have a lot of restricted or revenue sources that make up the full budget. So as we go forward into 15-16, you will actually see, even though we've been focusing on reductions to some of our operations, the total citywide budget will actually increase. This year's budget is $1.34 billion. Next year's budget, we're pulling all the numbers together right now, and we'll have those for you next week. Right now, we're estimating it to be about $1.6 billion, but I do want to point out some significant changes that are contributing to that. One is we have had, over this last cycle, you've heard us kind of come back with you on refinancing some of our bond debt. There's just that sometimes the environment is good that it's beneficial for the city to refinance. There's certain portions of the debt that is callable that we're able to refinance at certain times. We have not placed that in our budget before, but when we do those refundings, it does go against our expenditure limitation with the state. And so for next year, we do have $166 million that is eligible for refinancing. So we're putting a placeholder in the budget in case the opportunity arises that would be beneficial for the city to do that. Other items is highway project advancement notes. These are different notes that we financed in the past for the acceleration of the highway down in Southeast Mesa. They were able to actually repay those ahead of schedule due to money that's available from the region, and that $78 million is included in the 15-16 budget in order for us to make that payment as well.
So quickly, just Mayor, so that means there's about $250 million that's going to show up in our total, but one is a refunding, so that's a good deal for the city, but we have to show it on a calculation. And the $78 million is the dollars we'll be getting from Prop 400. They're going to help us pay down that obligation we had on State Route 24. So it hits us, but it's not. It has to pass through the city, but it's not.
It doesn't affect our operating budget.
Yeah, it doesn't affect it. So it's not coming out of our resources, but it inflates our overall budget number in order to meet the state requirement to show total authorization.
So I get the second part of that the Prop 400 money is going to pass through and it shows up on our books, and we want to pay that down as quickly as possible.
Right.
The placeholder for the other bond debt, if for financial reasons, if interest rates don't go in a good direction and we opt not to pay those bonds off early, does that mean we'll have $166 million sitting
it just
in the
means
budget?
that instead of, so when you pay off, if I understand the way we would do this, you would, and if we have the opportunity to call debt, we still have to show, apparently the rule is now we have to show the payment of the $166 million that you're refinancing.
Correct. We would actually show the receipt of the proceeds for the sale, and then we would show the actual paying down of the old debt. So it would cycle through the City of Mesa's budget. And so in the past, they haven't been too large, and we've been doing, what that does is that it goes against our expenditure limitation. And if during the year we had an emergency that we had to use our reserve funds, that is taking up some of our capacity to spend.
But the only reason we're showing this is the possibility to save significant dollars for the city. So, but in order to, we have these rules by the state to show our total authorization, so we have to include this so it doesn't count against us in the future.
I understand.
Some of the other areas we also are included in here is the Gilbert Road Light Rail expansion is $17.3 million is in the 15-16 portion. Again, that's a pass-through of money coming through the city toward that particular project. A couple other areas just of note, because we did change a little bit the way that we are showing these in our books, and therefore it is expanding our budget a little bit, is whenever we do a joint venture with other municipalities, when we are the lead, it actually results in a somewhat double budgeting of part of it, because as the lead, we budget for the entire project, construction project. And then as the City of Mesa, we also need to budget for our portion of that project. And so as right now for the Greenfield Water Reclamation Plant design, we only have $6 million for next year, which is the City of Mesa's portion. But then the $6 million plus the other portion is also budgeted in our Greenfield Fund, Greenfield Water Reclamation Plant Fund, because it's a separate joint venture. So I just want to bring that to your attention. As we go forward with that Greenfield plant, that dollar amount will get bigger. As our City of Mesa's portion is a greater percentage of that plant, of the expansion of that plant, and that will actually show in our books twice, once in the joint venture and once in the wastewater as a normal expenditure to that department. Going forward, as we talked about, as we move into the 16-17 process, the staff moves into the process right away. Budget is a continuous, ongoing annual process within the City of Mesa. And for 16-17, we'll be looking for either additional revenues, reducing expenditures, or a combination of the two in order to bring us into that 2-year phase that we're trying to bring our expenditures into alignment with our ongoing revenues. We will continue to review and analyze the city's financial status and formulate possible options. Again, it's not just an annual process. We do this once a year. It's really a monthly process that we look at our financial status and look for options. And staff will also continue to review processes and services, ensure that we are effective and efficient with the use of city resources. And with that, are there any questions involving the 15-16 proposed budget?
Mr. Thompson.
Yes, I have one question and one statement. On the funding of nonprofits, is there a tax type offset that we get back for contributing to nonprofits in any shape or form?
No.
No?
I think so.
Okay. And then on the, similar to what Alex, kind of like what Alex was saying in the future for the IT, I think one of the things that I would like to see is relating back to the facilities maintenance portion. At some point, I'd like to see what type of facilities we as a city own and what it's actually costing us to maintain those facilities. I don't like being reactive, especially when it comes to older facilities. If it's costing us more to maintain it than it is what the property is worth, then we probably ought to start looking at that and considering where our savings really are.
We can do that. We have a pretty extensive schedule, life cycle schedule for all our buildings, roofs, HVAC, carpet, so we can sit down and share that to you.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Brady? No. Okay. No.
Just my point. So we would be scheduled to then bring to you the next step, Candace, would be to bring to you what we call, is it the tentative or preliminary? What do you call it?
The tentative budget.
The tentative budget.
So next Thursday morning, when you review the agenda for May 18th, on that agenda will be the tentative budget. That would be about a 5-page document that summarizes all of the revenues and expenditures by fund and by department, as well as positions within the city. That'll be you'll be reviewing that as part of your agenda next Thursday for adoption of the tentative budget on Monday night, the 18th. The following council meeting, we would come back and actually in a special council meeting, adopt the same budget, but it's just the final adoption. In the meantime, we publish it. So there's publishing requirements. And then so that would be on June 1st. You would come back and do the final budget. And then 2 weeks from there is the actual adoption of the secondary property tax levy.
So, Mayor and Council, I wanted to share those dates with you. We know a few of you are not going to be here on the 14th. I think most of you will be here on the 18th, but we know the 14th is the Thursday that we review it before then. Again, we've given you a summary. So I guess one question is, because I think there's at least 3 of you that won't be here on the 14th. We're comfortable. We're doing this we're keeping pace. If it's the pleasure of council, we can stay on that schedule. If the comfort level is maybe you'd like to look at those numbers one more time, we could slip this to the June.
We can do a one council meeting.
We could do just one more slip at one more council meeting. So I want to kind of see what the comfort level. I was thinking maybe because this is a pretty big decision, maybe it'd be comfortable. And I know the mayor's not going to be here. Maybe we could just, if you're okay, in previous schedules we'd assume the 14th and the 18th, but I really want the council to feel fully aware of what we're doing, and so you are, but just seeing numbers I think is one thing. So I was just going to propose maybe we could slide it to the June
It would go to
calendar?
Correct. It would be June 1st would be the adoption of the tentative. Then, if we were to slide one council meeting, that would put the second meeting in June for the final adoption and the first meeting in July for the.
So we're cutting it close. That's why we usually do it the schedule, because we don't like getting too close in July because of our shorter schedule. But I think we can still do it if council's comfortable with that. And then I think that assures us that we have more of you here when we're doing that. If you're okay with that, then I think for the mayor we'll do that too, and for everybody else. Is that fine, Mayor? Are you comfortable with that?
It is, and I appreciate you being sensitive to me being here. I would love to be here. The 14th is I'm on a GPEC trip next Thursday, so. But I'm afraid on the 28th I'm also supposed to go on another trip.
Okay. Tell you what we could do. Why don't we bring that tentative budget maybe the Thursday just to review it? Even I know we're reviewing it because it's part of an agenda on the 1st, but we could bring it a Thursday before then, the 21st.
Before the
21st would be great for me.
Okay.
Right.
Why don't we work on that? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
I'm just going to say, getting it agendized and out in the public is helpful. The sooner the better.
Yeah, and that way it'll be out there even longer than proposed.
Okay. Out there even
Let's do
longer.
that. Okay, we'll work on that schedule. I just wanted to share that with you and make sure everybody was comfortable. But at this point, we're taking the numbers you've seen this morning, and really what we have to do is now put it in a report so you can see all the numbers together at one time. And now we've kind of settled on programs and services. It allows Candace to spend some time putting them in the spreadsheet so that we can share those with you.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, I'm sure we'll all weigh in on this at the next meetings, but let me just give my compliments to staff, but Mr. Brady, to Candace. I think this is, I'm the new guy, Mr. Thompson and I, to this process, and I've been impressed, just so the public knows, what we've gone through is a round of budget meetings with all the departments in the city where they've been asked to make significant cuts to their budget, 5% or more. And so each of the departments has come forward, has identified how they're cutting their budgets. This is a very frugal operation. And I understand that and I appreciate that. So my compliments to staff for going through this painful process. And I think it puts us we're on a good trajectory. Maybe one more year of doing this and hopefully some improvement to the economy and we'll be in good standing.
Mr. Finch will say, that's what I keep telling him every year.
6.5 years of budget cuts for Mr. Finner. But that's better than not managing our resources wisely.
We appreciate the council's direction and guidance. You've helped us with some policy discussions, but really kudos goes to our city employees, our department directors who have been magnificent, and it's not easy. And so we will march forward and hope for better times ahead so we can, if nothing but maintain would be a great accomplishment. So we'll see what we can do. The good news is for our city employees, Mayor, and I think this is important, and we didn't highlight that here because we talked about it early in the process, we have allocated dollars in this budget, and part of the cuts will allow us to address compensation for employees and have competitive compensation. So our belief is, well, we will see it, that many employees who have not received a pay increase over the last several years, 6-7 years, will have an opportunity to receive that if they're meeting their qualifications under our step pay. So I think that's a bright note in this that maybe we haven't had a chance to talk about, but it is an opportunity for us to reward our employees in this budget. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is item 1B. Here, a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on Mesa's A Better Community program, also known as the ABC program. Neil, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Neil Curley, the Management Assistant in the City Manager's Office. I'm here today to give you an update on the ABC A Better Community utility bill donation program. So we'll go ahead and start with a little background and history and to set the stage. So the year is 1989. Game Boy is released. Chicago has the #1 hit of the year. The San Francisco 49ers beat the Bengals in Super Bowl 23, and Microsoft Office makes its debut. Also, the city of Mesa created the precursor to the ABC program Plus. So this allowed utility customers to add $1 to their utility bill, and all these donations went towards funding or assisting low-income residents with their utility needs. Then a decade later, the city created a partnership with the Arizona Republic Charities, and they agreed to match all donations to the Plus program, which shifted its name to ABC, 60 cents on the dollar. And then also, too, so Plus changed its name to ABC in 1999, and then the focus shifted to funding human services in the community. And then over the next year, the Arizona Republic Charities reduced its amount, and in 2001, actually, they no longer were able to provide any sort of match to the city. And then in 2010, the default amount option that given to utility customers to donate on their utility bill changed from $1 to $5. You can kind of see that here. So that yellow line represents the dollar value of donations, whereas the red line represents the number of donations. So before it was that 1-to-1 ratio. When we saw that change flip, an increase in the dollar value of donations, but a decrease in the number of donations. And over the past several years, we've seen kind of this slow decline of the dollar value of donations and number of donations. Now, Mesa is not unique in this regard. Several other East Valley cities, including Tempe, Scottsdale, and Chandler, all have similar programs to this that fund human services in their communities and have seen a decline over the past several years. So we took a look further into the ABC program, see if we could find any insights. And what we noticed was that if you look at that chart on the left, that's a breakdown of how our utility customers pay their bill. So the majority, you see the trend is more people are tending to pay their bill via SurePay or online. And that blue section is mail, so that's decreasing over the past several years. But then when you compare that to the graph on the right, this is where our ABC dollars are coming from. The majority of those are coming from online and mail. And what we noticed was actually that the online and mail customers were being prompted each month to donate, whereas the SurePay and electronic transfer folks, you would usually set up a recurring donation at the beginning, and it was kind of the set it and forget it mentality. So I set it, you automatically withdraw from my bank account, and I don't really have an option then to be prompted or the opportunity to donate on a monthly basis, whereas if I'm donating or receiving my bill via online or mail.
Sorry, Mr. Luna.
Neil, is it possible to get prompted? You know, because I get it automatically, electronically.
Yes.
So if you could put on the prompt that says you're going to be deducted so much, would you like to donate to ABC? Hit yes, and then.
We're heading there. I'm getting there. So yes, that's the direction we're moving
Excellent.
in. So that's the insight, and yes, we noticed that.
That's exactly what we want.
Exactly. So we're going in that direction.
Can I make sure I understand as well? When you sign up for SurePay, can you at that point opt to have $5 added each month? And
you can.
Is
yes.
that the way it is right now? And apparently folks are saying, I don't know that I want to assume I want to be $5 generous every month, so I'm going to be more frugal and just say take the minimum.
That's correct.
That's what
yes.
they're doing.
So yeah, those SurePay folks have the opportunity.
But those who are signing them up are we have a script for them to encourage them to consider that, right?
Correct. Yes, we do.
Right. Yeah. So we're trying to encourage them to make that commitment on the front end, but after they do, right now we don't have any. If you get your text, you get a text from the city about your SurePay, it just tells you the amount that's going to be coming out. It doesn't have the additional information. So that's something we learned by doing this analysis. So
yeah, and when I get my email, it just has the utility amount. I don't see anything about the ABC.
Exactly.
So I have to add it.
Correct. So that's exactly what we realized as being part of this. So.
Okay. Correct. So we continue to look further, and we were curious, too, as to what those most common amounts people were donating. And this is kind of a breakdown, too, of what the amounts most common are, $1 and $5, and then also where they're coming from. And what we noticed, too, depending on how you pay your bill, plays a factor into what donation amount options you are given. Whereas you can see the majority of that blue section is the mail folks. Most of them donate the $5 amount. It's because if you receive your bill on the mail, you're just giving one checkbox, and it's either kind of presented to you as a $5 donation or nothing. So they have the opportunity and the ability to do 1 or 2, but just the way it's presented to you, it looks 5 or nothing. Whereas you can see online, most of those folks are donating $1 because they're prompted and have a field that they can enter in a donation amount. So we noticed that depending on which payment method you were using, you had just an inconsistent amount of options available to you. And then also, too, some feedback that we had heard when we met with several of the nonprofits and discussing with our billing folks, some of the things they've heard from customers is, we fund a lot of agencies and also kind of the history of the program being utility assistance, then shifting to human services. There's a lot of confusion as to what ABC donations are for, and a lot of people aren't really aware of what the ABC program is and what their donations are going to. So that kind of leads us into our insights again. So people are unsure of what their ABC donations are going for. And again, depending on which method you're paying your bill, you have inconsistent donation options. That's again, if you're the mail, you have the 5. If you're online, you have the ability to enter in any amount. Same with SurePay and electronic transfer. And then also, too, that limited exposure to the program. So those folks who are setting up recurring payments usually get exposed to ABC right up front when they sign up. But then again, we're not really following up, and they're not getting any prompts or opportunities to donate again in the future. And again, that all or nothing proposition on the bill, that $5 or nothing, we've heard some feedback that that's pretty steep for a lot of folks, whereas they might be more inclined to give $1, but the way it's presented to them, it looks like 5 or nothing. So for some of knowing these...
Sorry, Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Going back a slide, those donations, is that part of the $720,000 that's in the budget? Or is that in addition to?
This is additional.
Additional, yes.
Okay.
And ABC was about $118,000 last year, is what we collected for ABC donations and passed through to nonprofit organizations.
Now, Councilman, it goes to many of the same agencies, so.
So with those insights in mind, what we are doing, we've created donation amount options, again, removing kind of the blank fields and giving more concrete examples. So when you sign up for ABC via our online form or you log into your utility account today, you're given a drop down where you can choose 1, 2, 5, or another amount, and you can enter in any amount to your liking. We're currently working, too, to get those options on the bill as well, so those bill customers have the opportunity and the clarity to know that I can donate $1, $2, or $5 or another amount to my choosing. It doesn't appear to be that 5 or nothing proposition. And again, so to Councilmember Luna's point, so we are focusing, yes, on new utility customers. So when those folks call in, when new utility customers call in, our customer service representatives, we've given them a script, they inform them about the ABC program, and they encourage them to set up a recurring donation at that time. And we actually tracked this for a 3-week period, and we were able to sign up about 40 new customers on ABC for a recurring donation. I think that's key, too. It wasn't a one-time. We're getting those donations month after month. And again, we've run some on-bill messaging for our folks who receive notifications via mail, trying to add more of that clarification to what ABC is, whereby highlighting some of the outcomes of ABC, what their donations are going towards, and what are some of those things in the community that those funds are being used for. And then again, too, to increase kind of awareness, if you call into our customer service line, you receive, if you are placed on hold, we have messaging that tells you about ABC, informs you about ABC, and encourages you to donate. And where we're heading. So for those folks who receive an email or text, we are looking into adding some sort of link or button on those notifications that will allow them to donate. Just easily, really quickly add a donation amount, whether that be the 1, 2, or 5, right there via their phone, on their phone, or through their email. And also, too, we're continuing to work with nonprofits to maybe feature some of these nonprofits, some of the nonprofits that received funding in the past year, really highlight those programs that ABC funds are going towards to help that clarity and help customers understand what those donations are going for. And we're looking to do that again through those texts, through those email notifications, and other forms of media such as social media, and continuing with the on-bill messaging. So with that, that's my update and kind of where we're headed with ABC. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Mr. Finter. I'm sorry.
I would love to get at the holiday season where I feel like I have the opportunity and more desire than other part times of the year to receive, as a SurePay customer, an email that said, here's a great opportunity, the buttons, and then maybe a specific, your contribution here can go to turkeys for needy families or something like that. So just one more little step. I don't think we need to overdo that, but at the holiday season, I think people have been a lot more likely. So a little more proactive on the email and the button, easy 1, 2, and I'm done kind of approach. So maybe there's an opportunity there.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Richens.
The inserts in the mail have always presented a good opportunity, but I went away from it. I just get the email now, and I like your idea of featuring kind of a rotating feature on the different nonprofits, so people make a connection between the agencies in our community that get funding, and so I really like that idea. I think you're on the right track, and it would be cool to include that in the email I get with the bill. So the bill's there, and then because you get emails like that all the time that have advertising on it within the email. So including an electronic resource in lieu of those inserts that I don't get anymore because I don't get a paper bill. But I think you guys are on the right track. I'm really excited. I mean, this has been a long journey. We've talked about this for 2 or 3 years, and I really appreciate the efforts that have been made so far. And the analysis, well done. It's really great to get into the weeds of this and say, okay, what's the deal here? What can increase this? Because this is really our opportunity. I mean, there's just not a lot of general fund money to go around with so many competing priorities. But if we can, spread this across our citizens and they understand why this fund exists, I think it presents a great opportunity to be able to interject more money into our giving process when we do CDBG and human services. So thank you for these efforts. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Mayor Giles and I were instrumental in changing the program to ABC to extend the reach to human services agencies far, beyond the utility donation. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing, creating the different options, taking advantage of the different uses of technology that we have today, because the way people are making purchases or donations is really changing dramatically, even as we speak. And so I think the more opportunities for people to pay, the easier it is. Removing the barriers will help increase it. But I also particularly like highlighting the agencies that we serve, because people may not remember the name ABC, but they might know Child Crisis Center or whatever it is. And I think that helps to validate their decision whether or not to donate. So I certainly think you're on the right track, and I appreciate the changes.
Thank you. Mr. Luna.
Hey, so Neil, have you ever thought of doing some kind of app that we can put on our telephones so you can do some campaigns during the fall, and just the point that Councilmember Finter talked about, maybe during the Christmas time, you could actually have some kind of app where you can actually do a donation and go straight to ABC funds.
We haven't considered that. We considered though the text. You can receive the text and be more proactive. So we'd be sending that, pushing that to you, as opposed to having you to go download that. But that is something we can explore.
Where you could do some crowdfunding. Here's a way to donate.
We went down the crowdfunding.
We've talked about that as well. Yeah. That's been in discussions. Yes.
Thanks. I'm still trying to get my brain around the idea that the Bengals were in the Super Bowl. But I think I've kind of come around finally. I think my comments are very similar to what you've already heard. But talk to Mesa United Way. They'll tell you that philanthropic giving has changed over the last decade or two, and people no longer, I think, are comfortable just writing a check to Mesa United Way or checking a box so that the city of Mesa will evaluate what the needs of the community are and pass the money out in a fair way. They are very in tune to what their favorite pet charities are. And the most impressive slide, other than the Bengal slide, in the presentation was the great logos that we have for these wonderful nonprofits that people love in our community. So I think the problem here is not a lack of charitable, philanthropic emotion in the community. It's that we need to do a better job of marketing, and that's exactly what you're doing. So I would encourage you to throw those logos up at every opportunity. If I'm going to check a box and it's just some generic donation, maybe not. But if I see those charities logos that I care about, that I know are doing great things in my community, I'm going to say, well, of course I'll do that. So I think you're on the right track. So thank you very much. Good presentation.
Great.
If there's no other questions, thank you very much. Item number 2, information pertaining to current job order contracting projects. Council, any questions? Next is acknowledge the receipts of minutes of various boards and committees. Do I have a motion? Thank you. And second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Next item, hear reports on meetings and conferences attended. Seeing none, we'll move on to scheduling of meetings and general information.
I'll go ahead and do
you.
that. So, Councilmember Thompson, you have a Building Strong Neighborhoods meeting tonight from 6:30 to 7:30 at the Light in the Desert Baptist Church at 7930 East Baseline Road. We will have a study session next Thursday. As Chris mentioned, 3 of you will be gone. I have Council Members Richins and Glover that will be absent besides the mayor. We do have a review of the agenda on the 18th and a special council meeting related to some bond authorization. So it might be a short meeting, but we do need you for that. So that is, and that's at 7:30. That's it.
Thank you very much. If there's no other business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.